Today will be a trip recap of my most recent trip down to Walt Disney World for the 2026 Marathon Weekend. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, January 18th, and you're listening to episode 123, Trip Recap 2026 Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now.
The Epcot International Festival of the Arts is officially underway at Epcot. It just kicked off 2 days ago on Thursday, January 16th. The foodie guide is on the Disney Parks blog website, and the wonderful Walk of Colorful Cuisine, the Disney on Broadway concert series, the Paint by Numbers mural, among many other offerings are all back this year. So make sure to check that out if you have a trip lined up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, when I was at Epcot, the displays for Festival of the Arts are already up.
There you go.
Obviously it hadn't started yet because I left on the 12th.
Yes.
And it's just kicked off on the 16th. So they were obviously gearing up, and I could see like all the food booths are also getting ready to open up. But yeah, it was just cool to see.
Absolutely. Over in Disney Springs, Gideon's Bakehouse is opening a new location. It won't be another cookie shop, though. This is going to be named Six Ravens. It's going to be near the existing Gideon storefront where Art of Shaving used to be. It's set to open sometime mid-year, so we're probably thinking a summer opening. This is going to focus on savory treats like hand pies named coffins, house-made rolls, among many other savory snacks.
Yeah, that'll be cool to see. Like, I'm sure it's going to be like decadent savory snacks, the same way their cookies are.
We'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, for sure.
And then a friendly reminder that the Disney Skyliner will close for scheduled maintenance January 25th through 31st. So if you are staying at a Skyliner resort, buses will be dispatched for Epcot and Hollywood Studios. Also, Frozen Ever After at Epcot will close for their update on the animatronics in this attraction. It's not going to be long, though. It's set to reopen in February, but if you do have a trip planned in the next few weeks, that is definitely something to be mindful of.
Yeah, for sure.
Over in Disneyland, you'll be able to meet Star Wars characters from other eras like Darth Vader, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker. Up until now, you could see characters from the First Order days, a character like, let's say, Rey. So this expands on the existing offerings in Galaxy's Edge over there. No indication if this is going to be coming to Walt Disney World, but we will definitely announce that if we hear it coming to the East Coast.
Yeah, for sure. Because, what is it? Star Wars Launch Bay used to have the Darth Vader meet and greet, and that kind of has moved over to Galaxy's Edge while that's been closed. But yeah, it would be fun to get the originals like, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and all of them.
They're very well-loved characters.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's been a minute since we've been behind the mics, right? We had pre-recorded 2 episodes before I headed out for the marathon weekend. I got back from Walt Disney World. That was late Monday night, and it was right around 11:05 p.m. or so when I landed. And I was home right around 11:40. We don't live too far from the airport. The local airport here, it's Regina, which is nice. And Lucy had left a car for me at the airport, so I just kind of drove myself home. I had a quick shower and headed to bed because I was initially supposed to work on Tuesday, but I actually ended up taking the day off just to catch up on life. So yeah, I got laundry going out. I got everything unpacked and just kind of got myself all set up and ready to go back to work on Wednesday. And it's always tough to head back after work after a Walt Disney World trip. And I do miss it already.
For sure. While Oliver was gone, my parents helped me out with all the kids' activities and just keeping us company. Actually, this past weekend before Oliver came back on the Monday, they helped me take down all the Christmas decorations, which was awesome because otherwise we would have been taking them all down this current weekend, which would have just added to our stress, with our already busy schedule. So I was just super appreciative for my parents for suggesting that they would help me. And my dad did most of it anyways. He just rocked it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super appreciative of that as well. Yeah. With that said, let's get into today's main topic, which will be a trip recap of my week down at Walt Disney World, essentially for the marathon weekend. So this was my first experience with runDisney, and I'm actually kind of excited to share my experience with you guys. And I think we've said this before, but recap episodes in general are our favorites, right? Because we kind of relive the magic. And even though it was just me this time, it does tide us over to our next trips. So I left early on Monday, January 5th, and I was actually supposed to leave Regina for an early flight to Toronto at 5 a.m. So on the 4th, I went to bed early, right? For obvious reasons. A 5 a.m. flight, I was going to have to get up around 3 a.m. And I did. So I woke up essentially just before 3. And as I was starting to get ready to go, I checked my phone and my flight to Toronto had been canceled. And then so I kind of looked through my emails and I had been rebooked to fly out of Regina around 5 p.m. instead, overnighting in Toronto and not getting to Orlando until the following day, which would have been January 6th. So obviously I was pretty upset with that because I would have been missing my first room or my first night at Pop, right, for my room reservation. And I was going to probably miss my first few lightning lanes at Magic Kingdom the next day, which was what I was planning to do.
Yeah. Not
So-
probably. You would have definitely missed them.
Exactly.
So it was definitely just a lot of things that would be missed. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So I called Air Canada and I was like, okay, this doesn't fly. So what else can we do? So we went back and forth a little bit, and they actually ended up putting me on a noon flight out of Regina via United Airlines with a layover in Denver.
Yes, and we've actually never flown United, so you were a little bit hesitant about that, right? Just because it's a company we've never flown with before.
For sure.
And then initially they had you on such a tight connection that you would not have been able to make it because the United flight was actually scheduled for 10:30 a.m., but it was actually delayed here until noon, so she couldn't see that for some reason, but we could see that actually on the airport website. I was awake with Oliver, and I was saying like, no, that's been delayed.
Yeah, that's right. And thank God you were looking at that because she was ready to book me on that flight, and I was like, I would not have made that.
No, you wouldn't have.
So yeah, like Lucy said, I had never been to the Denver airport, so that was an experience in and of itself. I had actually never flown, like Lucy said, with United or actually any. I'm trying to think.
American Airlines.
I don't think I've ever flown any American airline.
I know there is one called American Airlines, but any American affiliated airline.
Yes, in general. And like we've flown to Europe, so we've flown like Lufthansa,
Air Canada, because it takes us there as well.
Yeah, of course. But like, I don't think, ever.
No.
But anyways, long story short, my Canadian listeners know, right, that basically for us, it's Air Canada and WestJet, right? They kind of have that duopoly here in Canada. And like over the years, they've also like scaled back some of those creature comforts that are on these aircrafts, right? And not least of which are the screens that are on the headrest and the seat in front of you. But the aircraft from Denver to Orlando had really nice screens that were like touch screen and actually worked. And they were also Bluetooth enabled. So you can actually connect your AirPods or whatever, headsets you're using, but essentially you don't need wires. So I thought that was really cool. And the seats were just nicer in general, right, than what we're used to. And everything about it was just, I say, just a little bit better than like flying Air Canada and WestJet. So, which is kind of unfortunate for us because, like I said, those companies like Air Canada and WestJet basically run things up here in Canada.
And no offense, but they are terrible, both companies. We have had our family in general, like my parents, my brother-in-law lately, you a couple of times, your sister, when they came for Christmas, there's always something wrong with our flights, and it's just the companies have gone downhill, unfortunately, but we have no choice but to use them because we still want to travel.
And to be fair, like some of those things are out of their control. Like if it's weather related, like we understand, but there's definitely some things that is within their control that's not been necessarily handled super well recently. But I digress. This is not an airline episode.
No, we won't trash them too much.
Yeah, but so essentially I had a 2-hour layover-ish in Denver, and then I had a 4 o'clock connecting flight to Orlando. And with the time change, I landed in Orlando just after 9 p.m. And for reference, I was initially supposed to land around 3 p.m. if I would have taken that original itinerary with Air Canada. So, more than 6 hours later, but not the end of the world. But I had intended to actually go into Hollywood Studios to check out the Villains and the Little Mermaid shows and watch Fantasmic, but obviously that didn't happen because essentially the park was closed by the time I landed. So when I got off the plane, I grabbed my luggage and I headed to the ground transportation floor, which is one floor below where you would actually catch your Uber and Lyfts. And it's right actually next to where you grab the DCL shuttles if you're cruising with the Disney Cruise Line. And I was the first one there. So I waited about 25 minutes or so before from the time I actually checked in to the time we left. And there were 4 other parties on the bus with me, and Pop Century was the second stop. So not bad, like all things considered. And so basically from the time I got off the plane to the time I was getting off at Pop was just over an hour. So not bad all in all. And I was pretty famished at this point, and I was walking into Everything Pop Shopping and Dining, which is the quick service there at Pop Century, basically 5 minutes before it was closing. And it was like 10:55 p.m.-ish. I had a chicken Greek salad quickly, and then I headed to my room. I had a quick shower and unpacked kind of the essentials because I had an early morning the next day at Magic Kingdom. I woke up right around 6 o'clock. I got ready and headed to the buses for 6:45-ish. I was on the first bus to Magic Kingdom, and I was right near the front of the touch points for early entry, which is pretty much exactly what my
standard,
or not mine, but our morning routine is like in terms of how we, normally do Magic Kingdom. So we were led into the park around 7:50. I zipped over to Seven Dwarfs. We rode it a few minutes before 8:30. Like they let us in just a few minutes early, which was nice. And then from there, I headed to Peter Pan. They had a bit of trouble. Like it was like running, but very slowly, but still not bad altogether. And after that, I actually grabbed a coffee from the Joffrey's in Tomorrowland, and I was going to get in line for Tron, but it was pushing an 80-minute wait. So I headed over to Jungle Cruise and Adventureland instead.
That's too long of a wait first thing in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. I was not prepared for that. And after Jungle Cruise, I headed over to Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. I had lightning lanes for those. And then I actually had a lunch reservation at Beacon Barrel for 11:35. So I checked in for that right after. I was brought to a standing table at the bar, and the seating situation here actually is pretty much exactly like Oga's Cantina. So essentially, some people are standing at the bar, some people are seated, but if you are seated, you might be next to, like, literally right next to another party. So, don't be shy if you're dining here. So I was between two parties at the bar, which I wasn't mad about because it's really right in the middle of the action. Plus, the cast member was really great with me. It didn't feel like lonely at all. I had the Plunderous Punch, which is the drink that comes in that souvenir part skull mug that you might have seen on social media. It's made with Kraken black spice rum, blackberry, lime, and vanilla. It was actually really, really good. And it's $46. So, when you think about, you normally pay, like, I don't know, I'd say probably between $25 and $30 for a mug, like a souvenir mug anywhere in like World of Disney or any of the merchandise shops. And, a drink will cost you anywhere usually between like $14 and $19, I'd say. So when you factor cup plus drink, 46 doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah. And it's not like you're going to get that every single time either. It's just a one and done type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And actually they bring you a fresh mug. So obviously you're not drinking from the mug you're drinking from and then taking that one home. They take it, they wash that one, and then they give you a fresh one, actually bubble wrapped inside a box, inside a bag. So I thought that was really nice because I was just able to walk out with it, which was pretty cool. And then for food, I also had the Cook's Corn Griddle Cakes with Chipotle braised chicken, which are warm corn cakes stuffed with melted cheese, lime sour cream, and chili peppers. It was really, really good. I enjoyed that, and I definitely would get it again. The tavern itself kind of reacts similar to what it does like at Trader Sam's Grog Grotto over at the Poly. So, think like lightning and like the lights flickering and like
interactive.
The cast members like, do a bit as well. And then there's Rummy, which is like the bird. He comes out and he sings. It's overall a really fun atmosphere. And even just by myself, I definitely had a good time. And I would definitely recommend poking your head in here during your trip if you can. Reservations are actually still pretty hard to get. So it's definitely something you'll want to put towards, your later park days if you're staying on property, right? 60 plus whatever, how many days you're staying on property. Yeah. Because otherwise it can be pretty tough to get reservations here.
Good call.
After I was done there, I headed over to Peter Pan's Flight to ride that a second time. And I had a multi-pass for it, so I didn't have to wait too long. And while I was in line for that, actually, I got a message from my friend Sean, who had landed a little bit earlier. He was in town for the Dopey Challenge as well. So I took the monorail over to Epcot and we met at Connections right around 1:30. Guardians had a 45-minute wait, so we actually just hopped in line and kind of just chatted while we were waiting there. And then we headed over to Club Cool actually right after and had a cup of Beverly, and like we filmed ourselves drinking it, which, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Like, it's been so hyped up over the years as like, oh, it's so terrible. It's so terrible. It's really not that bad.
Yeah.
But it is free. So you have these little sample cups essentially, and then you just pour it out. So definitely stop by, and they don't just have Beverly. They have a bunch of them for like international Coke products. So it's definitely worth the
It's definitely a cool little thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. After that, we rode a few more rides. So we did Soarin', Living with the Land, and Remy's. And then we actually had reservations over at Steakhouse 71 at the Contemporary right around 5:30. So we made our way over there. It's not on the dinner menu, but they will make the hugely popular Stack Burger upon request. So that is what I had. And after that, Sean actually called it a night because he had an early morning flight and he just wanted to get his room set up. He hadn't been in it yet. And we were meeting early the next day to rope drop Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom before the Expo. So I hadn't seen the Starlight Parade at Magic Kingdom since its debut earlier this summer. So I actually walked over to Magic Kingdom from the Contemporary. I grabbed an ice cream treat from the plaza and actually sat down right around Town Square to watch that. That's my new favorite spot.
Totally. It's a great spot.
Yeah, we used to always watch the parades and stuff from Frontierland. Yeah. Because that's where it kicks off.
That's right.
It's not as busy as Main Street, but right in front, like right when you enter the park, essentially Town Square around like where the big tree is or the flag normally is. Yeah, it's a good spot. It doesn't fill up as quickly as the rest of Main Street. So yeah, it's definitely a go-to spot for us. The parade was at 7:45 and it was really good. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it.
I can't wait to see that one with the kids. I think they'll love it.
Oh, they definitely will love it. Like, just thousands of twinkling lights.
Can't
like
beat that.
Floats are really, really well done. So I think it's a great parade. And after that, I headed back to the bus stop and went back to Pop. And I was in bed at a decent time because, again, it was an early morning the next day. So I was up right around 6 o'clock. I met up with Sean right around 6:40 at Animal Kingdom, just outside of security. We rope dropped Flight of Passage with, great success, I would say. We were right near the front and on pretty quickly. Once we got off, we had actually set alarms on our phones to join the virtual queue for the Expo. So long story short, there is a virtual queue to access the merch at the expo, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but it does get super, super busy, especially on day one. So we stopped for breakfast quickly at Situli Canteen. And while we were sitting down like with our coffees, like we were ready with our phones to kind of join the virtual queue for the expo.
Absolutely.
We were both doing it at the same time, but Sean was quicker. He got us in boarding group 9, which is really awesome because the estimated callback was 9:30. But because of that, we had no time to waste. So there are buses to the expo from the resorts, but not from the park. So we actually took the bus from Animal Kingdom to Animal Kingdom Lodge and took their bus to the expo. We were called back just as the bus was arriving at Worldwide World of Sports. And then we headed straight to the merch when we got there. We checked in, and then you actually have to wait in another queue before you actually officially let in.
Ends.
Yeah, it's just an endless line of queues. But we checked in around 9:50 or so, and right around 10:10 we were let in, so it wasn't too bad. We boogied right over to the Dopey merch, which had a separate line. And what's actually really nice about this year is that they just changed this. The first day of the expo, the Dopey merch was reserved for guests actually running the Dopey.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, because unfortunately what's happened in previous years is people would buy the merch and then just turn around and sell it.
Oh.
So it's nice that the folks that are actually running the 48.6 miles, right, actually get the first crack at it.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
you guys definitely deserve the first. I'm glad they did that.
For sure, for everybody doing it, right?
Yeah.
So essentially I got a Dopey pin, a magnet, and a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the general merchandise, I had pre-ordered the men's marathon zip-up sweater. So I picked that up. And then I also got a metal hanger. So essentially it's mounted on the wall and it has these little hooks and then you hook your metal on it.
Yeah.
So it's just a nice way to display it.
Yeah, nice display.
And it has Mickey and Run Disney on it. So I really, really like that. And then I also got a mug, like a coffee mug, because I love a good coffee mug.
You do. And you've been using it every day.
I have been. After we were done there, we went to pick up our bibs. So both Sean and I were in A Corral, which was nice. So we took our photo with Dopey here after we got our bibs. And after that, we went and picked up our race shirts and our gear bag. And then we stopped by the vendors really quickly. It's just like any other race expo, right? So they just sell like shoes, hats, gels, like a bunch of race related paraphernalia, I would say. But what I found were actually these really cute magnets that, instead of safety pins, it's magnets that secure your bib to your shirt.
Yeah.
And they were Dopey themed. So there's one that's like Dopey's hat, his little vest, one was purple with green run writing.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then one that was 48.6 representing the distance.
That's fun.
They're going to follow me for every race going forward, Dopey or not.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And after that, we left the expo. We spent around 4 hours or so there. And after that, we headed back to our own resorts just to drop off our purchases. Sean was staying at the Riviera, and obviously I was staying at Pop. And then we went back up at the Riviera a short time after. We grabbed some coffees there and headed into Epcot. We did a few rides, including Frozen. And I always tease Sean because I hate getting wet. And we were sitting in the front row. So I'm like, if we get wet, I'm blaming you because it was his idea to jump in this line.
Yeah.
But we were luckily enough, we didn't get wet and we got a good photo out of it. And then we were actually feeling peckish. So Sean had a snack from Le Hall and I had the Affogato Espresso Gelato from Gelataria Toscana in the Italy Pavilion. This was actually the first time I had this and it's really, really good. So it's essentially fresh Italian espresso poured over vanilla gelato with amaretto cookies. And they kind of shaped them to look like Mickey. And it was divine. I would 100% have that again. And after that, we had dining reservations at Frontera Cucina at Disney Springs. So we walked over to Beach Club and took their bus to Disney Springs from there. We were pretty early, so we did a bit of shopping before dinner. And you actually have this Corksicle coffee mug that the lid keeps breaking.
I do.
Yeah.
And I love my coffee. It's like a to-go cup.
Yeah.
And I love it. But yes, the lid keeps breaking. And as soon as it breaks, it doesn't stay hot for very long and it just leaks everywhere. So I can't really use it. So you were kind enough to pick one up for me because they actually have a Corksicle stand at Disney Springs.
Yep, exactly. So Sean and I stopped there. I grabbed you a lid and then we went into World of Disney. And while I was shopping, I left my bag with your lid in it on top of one of the displays. And we went and did other things. We went to Marketplace, we ran around. And like, as we were heading to Frontera Cucina for our dining reservation, I'm like, oh, no, the lid. And Sean's like, I thought you put it in your bag. I'm like, no. So I sprinted back to World of Disney and luckily it was sitting right where I left it. So I was really thankful for that because I didn't want to have to buy another one.
No.
It wasn't super expensive, but still I didn't want to have to buy a second
No,
one.
I agree.
Yeah. And then, we checked into our reservation at Frontera Cucina. We shared chips and guac. I had the cochinita pibil and I forget what Sean had, but I think he really liked what he had too. So that was good. And we had initially planned to go into Magic Kingdom afterwards, but we both thought better of it, right? Since we had to get up really early for the 5K the next day. So we each headed back to, our respective bus stops and turned in for the night. So The races. Okay, so the 5K, the 10K, the half were all starting at 5 a.m. and the full marathon was actually starting at 4:30. So the buses were starting at 3 for the 5 and the 10K, 2:30 for the half, and 2 for the marathon. Like these are...
That's nighttime.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the night. Okay, so needless to say, these were ultra early mornings. So the morning of the 5K, I was up at 2:30. I was leaving my room just before 3 and on some of the first buses out of Pop Century. And right when the buses first start running, right, there's like 6 or 7 of them all lined up. And essentially, as soon as one fills up, it leaves. So I think I was on the second bus and I was getting into Epcot just around 3:30. It's actually a decent walk, I would say, from the bus drop off to the parking lot where the start line is. And there was a stage set up there and like the character meet and greet spots were on either side. There was a few vendors and a food and beverage tent here as well, like for purchase, like coffee and like snacks and whatnot. And then there was also the entrance to the corrals, which obviously has a bib check just to make sure that you're a participant. The closest corral to the starting line obviously is A corral. And then there's a kind of a loop around, and B was actually the furthest away, but they're the first to loop through, if that makes sense. You can kind of look at a map online and it kind of every corral goes around this loop and loops back around to where A started.
That's right.
When it's their turn. It actually works really, really smoothly.
It's like they've done this before.
Yeah, exactly. And the times are staggered, right? So by 5 minutes or so, but corrals go all the way to G. So essentially, I was done my race by the time the later corrals were just starting. And the 5K is pretty much all through Epcot. There's like zero road running. It's all through the park, which is really, really cool. And yeah, just for me, like a wild experience, right? Because it was my first Run Disney event. I finished in 26 minutes, which is a comfortable pace for me, not pushing too hard by any means, but I stopped for a couple of character photos, right? And I just tried to soak in it as much as I could. And after the race, I got my medal and I took a photo, with some of the characters that were at the front there because the lines had been super long before and they had died down after. And of course, I was some of the first people to finish, right? Being at the front of the A corral. So that was nice. And after that, I took the bus back to the resort. I got cleaned up and headed into Hollywood Studios for early entry. Sean's wife was coming in on that day because she was also running the 10K the following day. So they were spending the day together. I spent most of the day at Hollywood Studios. I rode Tower of Terror, Slinky Dog, Toy Story Mania, Rise, Rock and Roller Coaster. I also did the Little Mermaid and Villains show, which was the first time for me for either of those.
That's right.
And the Villains show in particular was really, really good. I quite enjoyed it. And we've talked about it on the podcast before, but yeah, like I said, this was my first-hand experience.
That's right.
And around 2:30 or so, I hopped over to Animal Kingdom just to do some of the rides that Sean and I hadn't done before the Expo the day previous, essentially. So I rode Everest Dinosaur for the last time, right? And I checked out the Zootopia show, which again was a first for me. It's an okay show. I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking or anything. I wouldn't go out of my way to see it. But if you're at Animal Kingdom and you've not seen it yet, I would definitely go see it. But I found they did make a good use of the existing space, right? So, if you imagine what It's Tough to Be a Bug is like, the theater is pretty much the same, including the creepy crawlies that kind of touch your backside, if you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
So that's still there. But overall, it's still really fun. After that, I headed back to Pop Century a little earlier, and I had dinner at Primo Piatto, which is the quick service location at the Riviera. I had the Croque Monsieur with a salad and tomato soup, and it was pretty good. I would definitely have that again.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I turned it early because it was another very early morning the next day for the 10K. So I was up around the same time, 2:30 or maybe just even a little bit earlier. I got ready and I was on the first bus out of Pop. The crowds were noticeably heavier on this morning, like the 10K, because the welcome area just felt like congested. And the line for Chippendale was really, really long already when I got there. And again, I was on the first bus out of Pop.
And that's because they were the theme for the 10K, right?
That's right.
Yes.
So exactly. So each race is themed to a character.
That's
the 5K was Pluto. The 10K was Chippendale.
Because normally you'd think, why does Chippendale have such a long... Well, it's because everybody wants the photo with the theme.
They're the characters on the medal.
Yes.
And then the half marathon was Daisy and Donald.
That's right.
And the full was Mickey and Minnie.
Obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus Dopey is the entire thing.
Yeah. Dopey is the 4 medals, obviously. That's why it's called the Dopey. And the Goofy is the half marathon and the full.
That's right. So he would be the big star of that one.
Yeah. And aside from that, Sean's wife was in Corral C, so they ran that race together. Sean actually started in C on that morning, and I was right at the front of A Corral again, so I left with the first wave. Again, it was an easy pace run for me. I finished it in 52 minutes. I did a few character stops throughout the race. The route was pretty similar to the 5K all in all, but I would say probably around 3 kilometers of the 10 was on the road around Epcot, and then the rest of the race was actually inside the park. And after the race, the character meet and greets were pretty empty again, so I got my photo with each of them, and then I took the bus back to Pop. got cleaned up, and headed into Epcot on this day. I rode Guardians, Test Track, Soarin', Spaceship Earth, and just as I was heading into France to ride Remy's, another friend of mine, Corey, was just walking into the International Gateway entrance with his wife. So yeah, that was awesome. And then we all headed to Remy's together and we rode it single rider. And yeah, we just caught up after that. They had just eaten actually before they came in. So we actually went to County Fish Shop and I had some fish and chips and we just caught up essentially while I was having lunch. And after that, we met up with Sean and his wife and a few of their friends, and we all rode the Three Caballeros ride together. Like there were 7 of us, and that's in the Mexico Pavilion. And after that, we actually split up again because Corey and his wife and a few of their friends had dining reservations in Disney Springs, but they also needed to swing by the Expo to pick up their bibs because Corey's wife was running the half marathon and Corey was running the marathon. But you still have to go to the Expo to pick up your bibs. And then Sean, his wife, and I rode Soarin', Living with the Land, and then we took the monorail over to TTC and then to the Polynesian, and we actually ate at Wailulu Bar and Grill, which is at the new Island Tower. This place does not take advanced dining reservations, right. So we just did the walk-up wait list, and we waited maybe like 5 minutes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had the poke bowl with chicken, which was pretty good. And after dinner, we all took the bus back to Hollywood Studios. I took the Skyliner all the way actually back to Epcot to grab some caramel popcorn from Caramel Cucce. And then I took the Skyliner back to Pop and just kind of snacked on that on my way home. And again, it was an early night, right? Because it was an even earlier wake up time with a half marathon the next day. I was up right around 2 a.m. this time. I had set everything out the night before to maximize sleep time, and I left the room. And I was actually halfway to the bus stop when I realized I had not put my contacts in on this day. And it's funny because I was taking a photo in the mirror every morning. And in that photo, you can see my contacts sitting on top of like the vanity, unused. Yeah. So I'm like, oh God. So anyways, I'm like halfway to the bus stop. I run back to the room, pop those in. But I was still like, I think on the second bus out towards Epcot. So that was fine.
That's what happens when you're up in the middle of the night.
Exactly. So I was walking into Epcot right around 2:50 a.m. I met up with Sean that morning. We got our photos with all the characters because lines were pretty low. And we were there pretty early, right? It was like, it was before 3 a.m. by the time we got there. So we got in line at A Corral a little bit after that. Corey was running the marathon, so he wasn't there that morning. And Sean's wife only ran the 10K, and that's why she was also not there that morning. So it was just Sean and I on the day of the half.
And where was Corey's wife? Because she was running the half marathon, right? Was she just in a different corral probably?
Yes, she was in a different corral, exactly. Yeah. And then the half marathon route starts at Epcot. It goes all the way to Magic Kingdom, loops around the park there, and then comes all the way back to finish at Epcot. So the first half of the race, I would say, went really well. I didn't stop for any characters on the first half. I ran into some, we'll say, quote unquote, tummy troubles right after we left Magic Kingdom. So I would say like just past halfway, which is really unfortunate because there's actually washrooms in the park that you can use that are, clean because
that are not porta potties.
Exactly. So long story short, I spend more time in a runDisney porta potty than I ever wanted to. Okay. And I'll leave it at that.
And just because it's Disney doesn't mean it's fancy. They're still just standard old porta potties.
Exactly. It's still a pick up and drop off porta potty. So long story short, the second half of the race wasn't nearly as pleasant. But yeah, anyway, I stopped for a couple of characters on the way back, right? So on the second half of that race essentially, but I was going much slower than I had been on the first half.
Yeah.
And I was glad when this race was over. I got my medal, I took my photos, and I just went back to the room and got showered. So the stops just really ballooned my time by my standards. So I finished in 2 hours and 13 minutes, which is more than a half hour off my best time. And again, I wasn't pushing.
Which is still pretty good though, because you did stop a bunch.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I wasn't not pushing for my best time, but it would have been a bit touch faster, right? But yeah, either way. After that, I headed into Magic Kingdom, but not until 11 o'clock or so. I took it easy that morning. I grabbed a coffee and then I met up with Corey, Sean, their wives, and a couple of their friends. And we actually had an 11:50 reservation at the Beacon Barrel. So this was my second time there in this trip, right? We were sat at a table this time because there were 7 of us. And because we were in between the half and full, I had a 0 proof drink, right? My body was going through enough. I didn't want to give it alcohol.
Yeah, you had a rough morning.
Exactly, right? So I had the Treasure Trove. So essentially it's an ube, lemon, and coconut drink served with vanilla cake plank, which is really a cake pop, a chocolate cannonball, which is a little round chocolate cake pop, and then caramel popcorn. And it was actually really, really good. It would be a fun one for the kids.
Yeah,
I'm sure
that does sound fun.
They would really enjoy that. And then I also had the Island Provisions, which is essentially, it's just a take on chips and dip. So it comes with plantain chips, blue corn tortillas, and toasted flatbread. And then for dipping, there is mango chutney, garlic chimichurri, spiced guava, and a zesty cilantro cream dip. That was my favorite. And yeah, really, really good. I would definitely get both of these again. And I think actually you would really like this. I mean,
the dips.
Yes, the dips.
I love a good dip. I'm all about dips. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Plunderous Punch or this Treasure Trove, you would like either of those drinks too.
Sounds good.
After that, we rode a few rides. So we did Pirates because we were right there. We did Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. It was actually right around Festival of Fantasy Parade time. So the line had dipped a bit. And then we did Tron as well. And we were initially going to do dinner at 5:50 at Tony's Town Square. But a few of us were running the marathon the next day. And we essentially just wanted to get to bed early. So we all agreed an earlier bedtime would be beneficial. So we headed over to the Polynesian and ate at Kona Cafe because they had like last minute availability essentially. So we got in right at 5 p.m. A bunch of us had Ohana noodles with a protein, which is perfect, right? Noodles the day before.
What was your protein?
Chicken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's good chicken.
And then I had some bread pudding as well. The same one as Ohana for dessert.
Can't go wrong.
So full of carbs for the next day.
Actually, that sounds better.
Yeah.
The Ohana noodles are like the best.
I was not upset that we went there.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Actually, a good alternate.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. After that, a few of us took the bus back to Hollywood Studios and again to take the Skyliner back to Pop and Riviera. I went to bed early here, obviously, because I had a 1:30 wake up time waiting for me the next day. And let's face it, that's the middle of the night.
Literally the middle. Most people are going to bed at that time.
Yeah, some people are. Yeah. So my stuff was all laid out the night before, right? One thing I actually haven't mentioned yet is the first night I checked into Pop, I actually grabbed some bread and peanut butter from Everything Pop. And I was having peanut butter toast in the morning. But especially for the day of the half and the full, I was definitely eating
some
before
protein,
leaving
some carbs,
some carbs, big time carbs. Yeah. So I was up around 1:30, on the bus around 2, and at Epcot by 2:20ish. Again, the lines weren't too bad. So Sean and I got our photos with the characters. Mickey and Minnie were the right for that morning because of the marathon, obviously. And yeah, like I was saying before, like every race is themed to characters. The marathon is Mickey, Minnie. And around 3:40 or so, we went over to the corral. And while we were in the corral, Corey, who was in B, actually came up right to the partition and we all took a photo together.
Yeah, it's a good photo.
Yeah, for sure. I really like that. And then, again, Sean and I were right at the front of the corral and we set off right at 4:30. The marathon route started at Epcot, then all the way to Magic Kingdom. That was around like mile 8 or so. And then around Magic Kingdom again through the parking lot and TTC, and then on the road towards Animal Kingdom. And this was actually, like, aside from running through the parks, which that's the best, but the next best thing, there was a lot of Star Wars characters on the road between Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom.
That's right.
And they had like lights and smoke machines and like sound effects. And it was a whole thing. And I thought that was really, really cool. And it just kind of helped to break up the monotony of, it's 26 miles.
And the other thing too is like you keep saying you and Sean started together, but actually Sean had a goal to take a photo with every single character on the run. Right. So you guys pretty much would split up, I'm assuming, for sure, as soon as you started to run.
Yeah. And Sean's in A Corral too, right? So he's a really fit dude, and we would probably have a similar pace if we were running for time. But yeah, his goal was to stop for every single character greet essentially. And I was only stopping for a few of them.
That's right.
So I was obviously just further ahead because of that. Yeah. And after that, actually the most brutal part of the race that I found was around kilometer 27, around mile 16, right before you head into Animal Kingdom. It's just like you see the people who have already come through Animal Kingdom coming around the other side, and you're like, I still have like
so much,
like 5K before I get there. So it's a little bit defeating.
That's fair.
But running through Animal Kingdom Park itself was really, really cool. Some people stopped to ride Everest, but it wasn't quite open yet when I was running by, so I just kept going. And after that, it was the final stretch, the last 12K or so. There's a lot of hype about Blizzard Beach parking lot being the worst, but I didn't find it too bad. Definitely not worse than the stretch before Animal Kingdom. And even the parking lot after Magic Kingdom, I thought was even worse than that. But anyway, long story short, the final 7 kilometers or so until you get to Hollywood Studios are also pretty dry, right? There's not a lot going on. But the last 3 miles are all through Hollywood Studios, the walkway that leads to the boardwalk, and Epcot. So that last bit was like definitely my favorite part of the race. And that probably had more to do with the fact that it's the end than where it is. But but yeah, still very, very fun parts of property to run through, right? My body was screaming like on the last 10K or so, like just the fatigue building right from the early mornings and the stacked miles.
And this was your first ever dopey. So 4 runs back to back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's intense.
The 5 and the 10K I could do. It's not a brag. It's just
what
it is.
Often.
I do it often.
Home, yes.
But not, before a half marathon, and certainly not before a full marathon.
Definitely not.
It's just a lot of miles in a short amount of time.
Yes.
So I was definitely feeling it. But at the end there, it was just essentially a major mental game. And I just pushed through that. So I felt pretty great coming down the chute, right? I got a little emotional at the end. And then, they just give you towels and they give you all the things, right? So you're like running out of arm space because they give you like water, Powerades, your medals, right? So I got my marathon medal, obviously, but then I went over to the challenge medal area because they give you your goofy medal for doing the half and the full, and then the dopey for doing all 4. So I had my hands full.
You did. Yeah.
I sat down for a minute just to kind of get somewhat cleaned up for my photos. So I took that towel and just kind of wiped my face, right? Because just like the salt buildup from, the sweat and everything else, it's kind of gross, but it's just the reality. I mean, you ran 26 miles, right?
Did you keep the towel?
No.
Oh.
No, it's in the garbage. Yeah.
Oh, you just throw it in the garbage?
Yeah. No. Trust me. I don't. Nah. So I took my photos with my medals with all the characters. Again, the lines weren't too bad. And I will say that my legs were really tight. So it felt pretty punishing to just be standing there. But sitting didn't really help much either. But I did sit on the bleachers for a while too and just kind of enjoy the ambiance and watched like more, people finish and come and with their medals and take their photos. It was just, I would say that this was probably the loneliest I felt all week, just because I would have really have loved to have you guys there at the finish line for this specifically. But it was special nonetheless.
Yes.
So I finished in 4 hours and 20 minutes. That was my final time, which again is pretty slow and comfortable pace for me altogether, right? And it was around 8:50 a.m. So by the time I was done with my photos and everything, it was about 10 o'clock and I was at Pop Century a quarter after 10. I got cleaned up and headed into Epcot to meet with Corey and his wife. We had lunch at Ale and Compass at the Yacht Club Resort. I had the chicken and waffles there, which was actually really good. So if you go for chicken and waffles randomly at Ale and Compass, if you're staying there, it's a good menu option. But they were leaving on a 4 o'clock flight. So after lunch, we said our goodbyes and I went back into Epcot. Corey is a hero because he essentially ran a marathon, got showered, grabbed his bags and got on a flight.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's funny because we were chatting after and he's like, it's the last time I'm doing that. Like next time I'm staying at least an extra day.
Yes.
Just to,
recuperate essentially a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. Instead of sitting on it. He lives in California. So it's like a 5-hour flight home.
Yeah, that's not a short flight.
yeah, exactly. And for me, when I was in Epcot, I treated myself to a croque glacé, right? That's from the L'Artisan des Glaces over in the France Pavilion. And I rode Remy's, Test Track, and Guardians. I waited standby for Guardians. It was like a 50-minute wait. So I regretted that a little bit, right? I was moving slow, but moving felt better than standing still or sitting.
True,
so,
yeah.
There's that. And then Sean and I and his wife, we had dining reservations at Caribbean Beach for Sebastian's Bistro. That was right around 6 p.m. We had a good meal there. It's family style and all you can eat, similar to Ohana, right? So it's a good post-marathon dinner for sure. After that, I headed back to Pop. I was pretty tired, obviously, having get up at 1:30 in the morning. And I did most of my packing because obviously I was flying out the next day and I went to bed early. I woke up around 7 a.m. the next day. I packed up the rest of my stuff. I dropped my bags with Bell Services and I went into Hollywood Studios. I rode Tower of Terror, Mickey and Minnie's, Toy Story Mania, and Rise. And then I actually had lunch at Docking Bay 7 and I had the Perginad hot chicken tip yip, which was actually really good. You would really like that. The spice in it is like...
my kind of thing.
Yeah, by Disney level, it's spicy.
Yeah.
Like it's not like...
I'll definitely have to try that one next time.
I think you'll really like it. And then for dessert, I went over to Charlie Car Cafe and grabbed that carrot cake whoopie pie. And then I sat down for Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular.
Nobody got hit by the ball?
Nobody got hit by the ball. The ball was in there.
They did take the ball away after that crew member got
That's right. So I don't know.
In the body.
Exactly. Yeah, if you've seen the video, it's wild. The ball is out. I had
heard that they had taken the ball, but I wasn't sure if it was back now, but maybe they just realized that they have to come up with a new plan or something.
I don't know what the plan is to bring the ball back.
I have heard that the cast member will make a full recovery, but he definitely got injured.
Yeah, agreed. But anyways, you're right. Long story short, it's not there.
Okay.
TBD when it comes back. Yeah. And that was the last thing I did. After that, I took the Skyliner back to Pop. This was around 12:30 or so. I grabbed my bags from Bell Services and I took an Uber back to MCO. So everything went well for my flights home. Thank God, right? Yeah. I flew out just after 4 p.m. I landed in Toronto. I stopped at the Maple Leaf Lounge there, the Air Canada Lounge, for a quick bite to eat. And then my flight to Regina was just after 8 p.m. I landed, right, like I said at the start of the episode, just after 11 p.m. and I drove myself home and that was it.
That was it. It went by fast, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it was my first experience, like I said, right, with Run Disney and with obviously the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. I had a blast. So I thought the Expo, the transportation to the races themselves, right, to be like really well organized. Like when I compare that to other race experiences for local races and whatnot, right? Like it's next level, right? The amount of people there is just insane. And like everything's on a bigger and grander scale, but it runs really smooth. during the races, there was a ton of water and hydration stations, which I thought was really great. And then obviously the characters and just running through the parks. Running through the parks was by far, that's why you go run Disney, right?
Yep.
Because like running through Magic Kingdom, running through Epcot, and then
a lot of people like to dress up too when they're doing their runs.
Most people do.
Make
I would
the fun
say,
of it. Yeah,
for sure.
Just let the magic happen, right? When you're doing this.
Yeah, and like just running in front of Cinderella Castle, stopping to take a quick photo. Yeah. Same thing in front of Spaceship Earth.
And that's the thing too. The photographers did a phenomenal job, like the cast members that are taking the photos, because you got some really great candid shots. There's lots where you could catch you spotted the cast member taking your photo, but there's lots where you didn't, but they're great shots nonetheless.
For sure. And like, if there's ever a time to buy PhotoPass, it's definitely for the races.
Oh no, like the photos were wonderful that you got.
Yeah, agreed.
Very impressed with all the photos taken.
For sure. Like there's a lot of really fun keepsakes in those.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, overall, when I initially signed up, I thought I was going to be alone, but finding out later that some of my friends had signed up as well, that was really fun, right? Because it didn't feel as lonely. So,
and they were wonderful. I appreciated that, even though Sean and Corey were with their spouses, they included you and everything. Yeah. They could have been like, nah, this is our trips away from the kids. We don't want you with us. They were both very gracious. All four of them were very gracious to make sure you felt included at every point.
No, for sure. Yes, for sure. They were great.
So shout out to Sean and Corey and their beautiful wives.
Yes, exactly. Agreed 100%. So yeah, would I do another Run Disney event? Yes, absolutely right. In a New York Minute, like I had a blast and I would definitely do another one.
Yeah, for sure.
It was really, really a fun time and a good experience. And if you're on the fence, if you're a runner or you're thinking about dipping your toes in running, Run Disney is a good place to start, right? It's super inclusive. Like you have really speedy people.
Runners,
yeah, and you have walkers, right? So
it's the experience of it that people are going for. Nobody's judging.
Yeah, exactly. It's there. You're there for the fun times, and it is a really fun time. So yeah, I recommend it 100%. So with that said, thank you for joining us today to talk Run Disney. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. If you choose to do so, you can leave reviews right on Apple Podcasts. And for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Go.to-Disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day and we'll see you real soon.